Let's talk about that, Lynn, with Andrew McKellar now, CEO of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Andrew, thanks for your time. So Prime Minister Albanese travels to China next. So does he have to almost be very careful or finesse any perception of decoupling from China if Australia is cooperating more closely with the United States?
Well, look, I think it's probably a bit of a balancing act, but I mean, here clearly, there are very significant opportunities and interests that need to be discussed between the US and Australia on this whole area of critical minerals, the energy transformation that's taking place. That is a big part of the focus in terms of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. And so, I think with a country like Australia, where we do have very significant resources of some of these critical minerals, it makes sense for that discussion to take place. So, look, I'm sure it will be a very robust set of discussions on both sides of the Pacific. There are huge opportunities, and really, I think we've just got to stick to our guns.
Andrew, this $2 billion boost to the critical minerals sector in Australia, which the government says is key for energy transition, is it enough?
Well, I think it's a very valuable boost. As you say, it's a doubling of what was already in place. I think here, the main thing that's got to happen now is that we have to have the companies that are in that space that are, extracting many of these minerals, seeing the opportunity. I think there are opportunities there to undertake further processing to really develop the supply chain capacity in Australia, to integrate that with what's happening in the US. There are many different uses for some of these minerals that are there, in the transformation of the energy system going forward to decarbonise. So, look, I think it's important that we really have those discussions occurring now, with the detail being developed on a commercial basis.
Andrew, defence, is that conceivably an area of bilateral cooperation between Australia and the US, whether it's behind closed doors or not, given Quad and AUKUS and the security alliances that are forming in this region? And if it is going to be an area of discussion, is that something that China is watching closely and could raise its ire?
Well, look, absolutely. Defence is a huge part of the relationship between Australia and the United States. The United States is Australia's, number one strategic partner. We've been in alliance with them, right through the period since the Second World War. So that's absolutely fundamental. It's important that the AUKUS partnership is not just focused on the submarine capability, but there is a much broader agenda in terms of defence cooperation, technology cooperation. There's important legislation right now in front of the US Congress, and I think having the Australian Prime Minister in Washington, talking to the administration, talking to congressional leaders, it's an essential opportunity to really build support for that framework, because I think there's a huge amount riding on it. Now, obviously, there's going to be some sensitivity for other governments like China, but really this is a matter of a long-standing alliance. It's a natural progression, a very significant development in that alliance, and it's something that I'm sure both Australia and the United States are very much committed to.
Andrew, Australia, as you were just saying, has, big resources when it comes to some of these critical minerals, but it isn't a leader in this space. What do you think is stopping it from sort of, becoming much more dominant?
Well, that's something that we're absolutely evaluating, because it is clear that in the past we haven't always maximised that potential. We've been very happy to dig up a lot of the resources and ship them offshore. I think here is a chance to change that narrative. Obviously, there is, a significant pressure point with the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. It's drawing in a lot of investment and activity, and I think we're working very closely, carefully with the Americans now to seek to ensure that some of those opportunities are spread around the region into the Indo-Pacific region more broadly, because that the transformation of our energy generation equation, it's absolutely fundamentally important that we move towards more renewable sources of energy generation right around the world, and that's something that we want to contribute to.
Andrew, you're there in Washington DC, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is political dysfunction, political chaos. Is any of this going to get signed, sealed and delivered if Congress can't even elect a speaker?
Well, that's obviously happening in the background. There's nothing we can do about that. I think we're all watching and learning from what is happening here. But look, what I'm seeing is very deep engagement between the Australian government and the US administration. The Prime Minister will be meeting with important congressional leaders. And look, we just have to hope that things that the Congress is able to get back to business as soon as possible, because clearly it is a difficult situation for everybody. It's a constraint that we have to deal with at this point in time. But there's a commitment clearly there to continue to work together and to try and get results.
And Andrew, I just wanted to ask you, in that critical mineral space in Australia, there's actually a lot of smaller scale miners. Have you received any feedback from them in relation to practical processes like approvals for mines and processing facilities? Do they feel that the government needs to do more in terms of streamlining that process and making it more nimble?
Look, absolutely, it is a major issue internally, and it's something we're hearing a lot more about, from industry. That environmental approvals process at the moment can be very challenging, and I think it's something that there'll be more work in the pipelines shortly. I'm sure this is something that we will hear, our members talking about in the weeks and months ahead.
Andrew, and do your members feel that there is a pathway? Is the door still open to the US coming back into the CPTPP? And if that does happen, how much of a multiplier effect will that have on two-way trade?
Well, I think that's something that's desirable in the longer term. Of course, at the moment, you've got that Indo-Pacific economic framework which is being progressed. And I mean, I think one of the concerns there it is more limited, that it doesn't necessarily deal with a full agenda, particularly around market access. So I think, look, that's something that we're mindful of. It's important, I think, to have those discussions, that engagement really across as many economies within the region as possible. So that's something that I think there is support for. In the longer term, it would be good to have a higher level of ambition and to have the United States fully as part of that process. It's an absolutely integral part of Asia Pacific, and to have them involved in that way would be, I think, in everybody's interest.
Andrew, we'll leave the conversation there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Andrew and McKellar there off Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My thanks to Lynn as well.